Hey guys, how you been? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about Ukraine and Russia, where there are now reports of Ukraine crossing into Russian territory, and we're gonna talk about the articles here. Russia's state of emergency in Kursk amid of incursion. A state of emergency has been declared in Russia, in the Russian border region of Kursk, as troops continue to battle against an alleged Ukrainian incursion. President Putin has accused Russia of a large-scale provocation. Russia said on Wednesday that it was continuing to battle Ukrainian troops that crossed into the border region of Kursk a day earlier. A state of emergency has been declared by the regional governor and security tightened around a nuclear power plant. To eliminate the consequences of any enemy forces coming into the region, I took a decision to introduce a state of emergency in the Kursk region on August 7th, according to the acting governor. The conference, Putin said that a unit of Ukraine's armed forces numbering up to 1,000 people went on an offensive in that region Tuesday morning. The Russian Defense Ministry said on social media that the enemy's movement further into Russian territory has been prevented, and that the operation of the destruction of those 1,000 Ukrainian army troops are well underway. Putin said this large-scale provocation Ukraine is carrying out. In the last 24 hours, the region has been heroically resisting the attacks from Ukraine. Russia said Ukrainian troops, supported by tanks and armored vehicles, had launched an assault on the Russian border forces in the Kursk settlements, with two towns just across the border with Ukraine's Sumy region. At least 5 people have been killed, 24 others injured, according to Russian authorities. The troops reportedly advanced as far as the Russian town of Zutsa. So there is a Russian town, Zutsa, and the Ukrainian troops are already there and are holding that position. And it is the home of the last operational transshipment point for Russian gas exports to Europe via Ukraine. So that town, the Russian town Zutsa, looks like a hub for Russian gas export into the European Union and into Ukraine, via Ukraine. And there's a nearby power plant, a nuclear power plant near that area, and Russia has deployed National Guard troops to protect that area and that power plant, just 40 miles from the Ukrainian border. The article continues to say that that nuclear power plant supplies certain total energy output towards that region. So that area and that power plant is vital into supplying natural resources, or rather Russian gas imports to the EU through Ukraine. And exports to the EU through Ukraine. And the power plant is also a critical infrastructure facility that supplies power to that region. On Tuesday, the Russian Defense Ministry said that the border defense troops, together with military units of the border force, were repelling attacks and inflicting fire damage on Ukrainian positions and enemy units. There's no comment from Zelensky or the US. It goes on to say that Ukraine has not explicitly said it's carrying out a fresh offensive on that region. The General Staff, however, has mentioned that Russian attacks on the border villages in Ukraine. It would make only sense to not give away your objectives and your mission. You don't want your enemy, in this case, Russia, to know what your goals and mission are. Zelensky said, and made no reference to the incursion, but he did say that the more pressure put on Russia, the aggressor, which brought war to Ukraine, the closer we come to peace. A peace achieved through just strength. The closer we come to peace. I don't know if they'll come closer to peace by sending 1,000 Ukrainian troops into Russia. It might be a good distraction and a counter offensive to what Russia has been doing the past couple of years towards Ukraine. I'd imagine that they're doing this with a purpose and for a reason, probably to draw attention to that area, right? For military resources, they want to draw military resources towards the area. They want to sabotage that nuclear facility and disrupt that region and prevent the export of Russian gas towards the EU. I'm surprised they actually haven't cut off that line earlier than now, so that Russia can't export their gas into the EU. Although the EU will probably not appreciate the higher gas prices because of this, but that is what you get for relying on Russia for energy. It's a very complex situation, geopolitical and diplomacy-wise, right? On Ukraine on Wednesday afternoon ordered the evacuation of 23 settlements in the Sumy border region, affecting around 6,000 people. So around the area where they initiated this incursion are about 6,000 civilians. They ordered them to evacuate, which would make sense. They are probably expecting a counteroffensive from the Russian forces into this area. So evacuating those people and civilians only makes sense. Asked about the reported Ukrainian raid, U.S. National Security spokesman John Kirby said Washington would be reaching out to our Ukrainian counterparts to get a little bit of better understanding. I'll let the Ukrainians speak to their operations one way or the other. That's most appropriate. We're going to stay focused and make sure that they have what they need to defend themselves, Kirby added. They definitely knew about this prior to Ukraine entering that region. That area is probably the most observed war space in the planet right now. The U.S. is probably monitoring that region and with a fine-tooth comb. They have satellites, drones, and images, and that every single square inch of that war zone. That is just what the U.S. does. And it wouldn't surprise me that they actually know about this operation prior hand. The intelligence gathering and sharing the U.S. with Ukraine is ongoing, and they definitely knew about and maybe even contributed to the planning of this attack towards Russia. Let's see, there was a video here. Let's go ahead and check it out. Where's that video at? Oh, there it is. Anyway, let's read this next article and then we'll go on to the video as a last part of this episode. A BBC article stated that why has Ukraine launched a cross-border attack on Russia? When Kyiv launched a cross-border raid into Russia's Kursk region bordering Ukraine, military experts are asking why. Ukraine is suffering from lack of manpower compared to Russia. Russia has a lot more soldiers. and is inching closer to the eastern Ukrainian town of Pokrovsk. Sending hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers into Russia itself, shall we say, according to the article, is counterintuitive in the eyes of some. It was not accidental, said a war analyst. It's clearly part of a one clear plan. A military analyst agrees as well. He told the BBC that Russia had been forced to redeploy some troops from the front line in eastern Ukraine. If you look at official reports, there were significantly fewer Russian glide bombs dropped in the Donetsk area. So it seems like in a maybe a little desperate move by Ukraine, they sent 1,000 soldiers into that region to distract and or pull military resources away from Donetsk area. So far, it looks like it is working. If that is their objective, then they are at least partially successful at it, from the looks of it. This incursion is extremely unlikely to be Ukraine looking to occupy Russian territory, but if pulling in Russian forces was the goal, it is being realized. The advance seems to have slowed after the US gave Ukraine permission to use its missiles on targets inside Russia. So Ukraine is now using US-made ammunition and bombs towards Russia. If you guys haven't noticed, we are in a proxy war. We, as in the United States, are in a proxy war with Russia. And the Ukraine, they're not going to survive without our support, along with the other Western nations in the European space. They are lacking manpower, ammunition, firepower, armored personnel, tanks. They're also lacking on air power. They recently just got F-16s, courtesy of the US and the European Union, along with some ammunition and other military aid as well. So the Ukraine definitely needs the Western powers to survive this conflict. Otherwise, it will be just in a matter of time, totally occupied by Russia, given time, because Russia has a lot of manpower. They're crude, but they have a lot of manpower. Given constant Western words of war escalating, it's likely some sort of permission was granted for an operation of this size on Russian soil. War escalating, yeah, this war has been escalating the last few years. And as I mentioned, we're in a proxy war with them. There is chatter across the border as well. This is a map of the region. Susa right there is the town in question, and there is a nuclear power plant close by. And Ukraine crossed into that border, into that town, and is occupying it right now with 1,000 military units. So a state of emergency has been declared. Russian Defense Ministry has admitted troops were being redeployed in the direction of Susa. Clearly for Ukraine, if it stalls or even prevents Russia from mounting a major attack in its north, it will see this operation was worth it. So as we discussed earlier, Ukraine, from the sound of it, initiated this offense into the Russian border so that they can relieve pressure from another region where Russia is mounting a major offensive. I did read somewhere that Ukraine lost 100, already lost 100 units or 100 men killed in action, and about 200 of those 1,000 soldiers are also wounded already. So 100 KIA, 200 are already wounded. So right there, 30% of your forces who enter that region are already combat ineffective and or injured and KIA. So they're not going to last long at this rate, right? After just 24 hours, you already lost 30% of your forces. You definitely need, I don't know if they're going to stay there or how long they plan on holding out in that area, but, or how long they're going to last. Zelensky said that more pressure is exerted on the aggressor, Russia, that brought the war to Ukraine. The more pressure is exerted on Russia, the closer peace will be. Just peace through just force. Just peace through just force. In other words, just peace through just war. It's like an oxymoron. You really can't have peace through war unless you absolutely annihilate the other opposition. Then you can have peace at the end or win the war outright. The Ukraine definitely is not on the pace to do this anytime soon. But time will tell what will happen. Let's go ahead and look at this video.
Alexei was an infantry soldier, but was wounded in combat. Now he works these checkpoints, making sure men of fighting age have registered with the authorities.
So the Ukraine have instigated or instituted a law already that all able-bodied fighting men of age are to sign up and defend their territory and country.
My whole family is fighting. My brother was with me, my father is fighting, my uncle is fighting. So I don't think much of such people. I don't understand them at all.
This morning is quiet. A few, like this man, get summons because they're not fully registered.
I have to pass a military medical board so that they confirm whether I am fit or not.
Looking at this gentleman, it looks like he's maybe in his 50s. I'd say in his 50s. And they're not messing around over there in Ukraine. They need every single man to fight for their country. Because if they don't, then they lose their territory. And Ukraine, as we know, it will be wiped out across the map. And it'll be Russian territory from here on out.
Not all drafting operations run so smoothly. Videos like this, shared on social media, are said to show recruitment officials using force. People swap stories of men being dragged off the streets. And while we cannot verify these pictures, they contribute to fear of the mobilization drive.
Yeah, I can't speak on the Russian government or Ukrainian government, but in order to survive as a state, as I already mentioned, as long as you're able to, at this point, carry a gun and, aim and pull a trigger, you're probably going to get signed up and be drafted to fight for the war. Because Russia has the advantage as far as numbers. So Ukraine needs every single body.
An army spokeswoman says such incidents are being exaggerated.
The country is under martial law as for violations of the rights and freedoms of citizens, as highlighted by lawyers, namely detention, forcibly bringing them in. These actions are now legal.
Okay, so they are under martial law. And as they mentioned, legally they're able to recruit men into fighting this war to defend their country. Now, the U.S. has something similar, right, with a draft. Although we are not there, maybe down the line, if we ever get into a major conflict and we're forced to defend our national interests and our country, it wouldn't surprise me to see that the draft be reinstated into the future. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. War is a terrible, terrible thing. And I don't wish that for anyone or any nation out here in the world.
In other words, the mobilization is going lawfully and orderly. Anton is worried about being forced to fight.
I have friends who have not left their apartments since the beginning of the war. They are scared. Everyone is scared.
Anton?
Yeah, war is not something to take lightly. It's only normal for you to be scared, or anyone scared in a conflict like this. Imagine you're just a young kid and going up, in like high school. All you know is like TikTok and playing with your friends, and all of a sudden you're forced into a war zone. And the chance of dying, getting maimed, not seeing your friends and family ever again, all the carnage, it's a horrible, horrible thing, right? So it's natural for anyone to be fearful of this situation. It's real unfortunate.
Anton is planning to escape.
Today there are not many ways to cross the border. In any case, it costs money, and a lot of it.
In the last year or two, the previous company I worked for, I was seeing a lot of people from Ukraine buying, new cars, and you can tell that they have money in their pockets. This is another unfortunate situation or phenomenon that happens. Is if you have money, you can pretty much, buy your way out of almost any situation. I'd imagine that for rich Ukrainians, you can buy your way out of getting out of the country into somewhere else, like the United States.
Those who have connections and money can escape officially, legally. Those who have no connections but have some money, they have to run or swim.
He knows someone who can help and has sold everything he had to raise the $10,000 bribe.
So $10,000 to bribe your way out of that conflict and out of the country. The majority of Ukrainians do not have that money at all. So in the act of desperation, as you guys just heard, some people are so desperate that they would sell everything that they own to escape that situation. Understandably so. Like, why would you give up your life, right? To something that maybe you don't believe in. Some of these people probably just want to live their own lives. Hey, I don't want to go to war. Why am I being forced to do this? So that's definitely on a lot of people's minds over there.
When you put life on the scale, nothing can outweigh it. You simply choose life, and nothing else matters.
Yeah, exactly the same.
The soldiers hunting for draft dodgers have found a peculiar case. This man is a reserve officer. Under martial law, he should have signed up already. He didn't, but claims he helps the armed forces as a volunteer.
Well, I'll go. Just go where I need to, not where they tell me. I'll go myself. I will fight, just not with the kind of chaos that they arrange.
So that guy's a reservist officer, and he's not complying to the terms that he signed up for is probably chaotic, as he mentioned. That's probably true. And if he did report for duty, it would probably, his worry is that he'll be sent off into the front lines and he'll get murked right away. That's probably what's going on. So he's trying to serve and dance around the issue by saying that he wants to serve on his own terms.
There's not much understanding for that approach here.
Not everyone can be a volunteer, especially an officer who took the oath and has to protect the country.
Yeah, if you took the oath to protect your country, you do what you gotta do. You can't change your mind if that is your job, is to be a soldier, take up arms, and defend your people in your country. You gotta do it.
Although the actual fighting is far away, it echoes along this quiet road. Without soldiers, Ukraine will not survive.
Yeah, that puts you in a tough position, right? If you are a volunteer soldier, or really anyone, you have family and friends that you want to see and be with, right? You have your entire life, and knowing that you are going to be sent to war, and the chances of you dying are pretty high. Yeah, why would you want to go? I get it, but at the same time, if you sign up for that job into the military and you're called upon, you have to answer. You have to answer. Otherwise, as the article right here, or the video, is concluding with, without these soldiers, there will be nothing left to fight for. Well, thanks for joining me, guys, on this episode. I will see you guys next time.